How's it going?
Hello again.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sam.
We are going to be spending the entire month of October in celebration of All Hallows Eve, in celebration of Halloween, reviewing a movie a day, talking about a movie a day.
You really have the patter down, and I hate hearing it.
I know, yeah. I've been saying this a lot of times. So, we're going to be watching a horror movie a day.
Today's picture is 1973's
The Exorcist. This is my third favorite movie of all time.
Ah, you have a morbid outlook on life.
My first favorite is E.T. and my second is The Apartment.
Now,
all right, so let's get talking about The Exorcist.
I don't like your taste in movies.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, so 1973's The Exorcist. It's written by William Peter Blatty, based on a book by William Peter Blatty,
Yes.
I should say.
Oscar nomination for the screenplay.
And directed by Billy Friedkin. Amazing director, Billy Friedkin.
Hey.
And produced by movie producer Robert Evans. So it's a real crazy all-star cast of people who were at the height of their game for this picture. Friedkin had just come off of
French Connection.
Yeah. Flying high off of that. The 70s are well in swing by the time they come up with this. It really is an all-star cast, and all the stars are really at the height of their powers.
Right.
So let's get right into it.
I right off the bat, I have to say that it's very hard to explain why I love this movie so much.
Well, please don't spend any time doing it.
Yes, it's a movie I watch literally once at least every 6 months. I love this movie so much, and I have to say, every time I watch it, I'm not even joking, just about every time, if I'm really engaged, I'm watching all the way through as opposed to just having it on in the background while I do stuff, I am in tears by the end.
Well,
every single time. Unless I'm watching the extended or the version you've never seen, which is a pile of crap, and we'll talk about that later. So, do you remember the first time you've seen this?
No, this is another one of those movies that everybody sort of gets it. You remember, you know,
it's the pea soup movie.
There have been enough pea soup, Linda Blair, parody moments. Movies like Scary Movie,
or even Repossessed, which Linda Blair started,
more or less denigrated some elements of this over the years. It still feels very fresh if you watch the original, but certainly the elements of it, which at the time no one had ever seen before, are now horror movie tropes.
Yeah.
It feels though like this is the first slasher movie that was ever made, basically. And
not slasher.
Well, no.
It's
like watching the first slasher movie ever made, and then you see where Jason and Freddy and all these guys came from. So the movie stars Ellen Burstyn as Chris McNeil, a famous Hollywood actress who's making a student protest picture in the Georgetown section of Washington.
Right.
And she's moved there with her daughter, Reagan, which I guess, the mid-century in America, that was a totally acceptable thing to name a young girl. It certainly wouldn't be now, mostly because of this movie and the president. But she's moved there with her daughter, and they live with a sort of live-in house, au pair, babysitter type character.
The Swedish housekeeper.
And a Swedish housekeeper and her proto-Nazi husband.
Right,
who
which play a huge role in the book.
A huge role in the book, but not in the movie, thank God. We don't even need to discuss it. I don't want you to discuss the history of Nazism while we do this review.
It's one of those beautiful things, and you also see this in a movie like Jaws. In Jaws, there's the book that's based on has subplots about the mob and the mayor, and subplots about the affair going on.
Oh my God.
The strength of a lot of these great filmmakers is that they
obviously
make it
we'll
simpler.
have time to discuss the plot of Jaws when we discuss Jaws later this month. Oh wait, we're not discussing Jaws even later this month. Bam! Back on track with The Exorcist.
It just goes to show, there's a lot of subplots and a lot of unnecessary stuff that they took out from the book for this movie to make it very simple, to make it about a girl in her bedroom and the Catholic Church.
Tacitly, we are doing horror movies all month. They would think it's a gag if I strangled you off camera right now.
I don't think it would be a gag. I think they would really recognize it as something.
Actress moves to Georgetown with her daughter, and the daughter, strange things start happening to her room, to her. She starts behaving strangely. The mother takes her to doctors, and when that's exhausted and Reagan continues to get worse, she eventually solicits the help of a priest, Father Karras.
The great thing about Jason Miller, I have to say, is that Warner Brothers really wanted either Warren Beatty or Robert Redford or Jack Nicholson, and William Friedkin saw Jason Miller in the championship season, which Jason Miller actually wrote. He wasn't really a traditional actor, but he saw him and he wanted him for the role.
Now, what's actually pretty interesting about that is Warren Beatty is the younger brother of Shirley MacLaine, the actress, who William Peter Blatty said the character of Chris MacNeil was based on.
They were friends, and if you look at the original cover of the Exorcist book, it's a photograph of a girl kind of looking like this. That's Shirley MacLaine's daughter. So really, this has gone from a review of the movie to the most comprehensive trivia.
Really,
about
it's gone
Exorcist.
from a review of a movie to a review of every movie that isn't that movie, which is very interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Bridge on the River Kwai at some point.
Bridge on the River Kwai is really
shut up.
excellent. It's my favorite David Lean movie.
Shut up. Okay, so it's an interesting production history that led up to it getting made. Apparently, a lot of people didn't want to produce this, but Friedkin pushed pretty hard for it. You know what I just remembered? Nicholson, who was up for the role of Father Karras, was also up for the role in the movie Rosemary's Baby of Guy, Rosemary's wife. And for both of these movies, was shot down because he looks evil, and you would never trust him for moment one.
Which is something that Kubrick totally used in his favor in telling The Shining.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons Stephen King doesn't like that movie. It's because you look at one shot of Jack in that movie.
You've managed to discuss The Shining as well. This is. We will at some point, I'm sure, install a running tally of movies that are not the movie that you've discussed.
But one thing that I really love about The Exorcist, and it's all to Friedkin's credit, is that he does a thing, he implements this technique where he'll never go to a shot, and this is just a directorial thing, but he'll never use the same shot twice. So if you cut to somebody over there, instead of cutting back and forth with the same angle and the same take, he does what I think he calls Truffaut's magic gem of just always making it a new shot, a new angle. He comes from a documentary background. And I really think the way he approached the material in a less classically Hollywood kind of setup and more of a documentary kind of like French Connection, infusing that sensibility into it, really made it unique for this period.
Yeah, definitely. And the burn of the film is very interesting. For a long time, it's played very close to the hilt as a sort of psychological drama. There's some stress at home that could be causing Reagan, the daughter, to act out. And by the time it gets into the point that it becomes very clear that something, truly haunting is happening, a lot of the movie's gone by. It's interesting how long he spent setting the world up, and yet the movie is long enough that we then spend a lot of time in a creepy, frozen bedroom with, priests trying to exorcise a 14-year-old.
And Max von Sydow, wow.
Max von Sydow, famous actor before this movie was even made, mostly for European pictures.
Bergman movies.
Throw
the Seventh Seal in there.
Yeah, oh my God, what are we at? Please,
Tally
let us know
18.
in the comments. It was, what was he? He was 34?
Something like that, something
at
crazy.
At the time of filming. And the makeup artist, Dick Smith, worked with a very young assistant by the name of Rick Baker, who would go on to do the special effects in a host of really famous, well-liked 80s horror movies. I'd love if you didn't mention the titles of any of them.
But we should mention the titles of some of Dick Smith's movies that he applied age effect makeup on. The Godfather and Amadeus being two of them. Nobody does age makeup
so
like Dick Smith.
That's unbelievable.
You look at Max von Sydow today, look at him in Minority Report. He's about the age that Father Merrin would be in The Exorcist. And it's 1-to-1. They look identical.
It is incredible. Linda Blair, a very, very young actress, saying some really horrifying stuff. Now, the voice, once she is fully possessed, is Mercedes McCambridge, a much older actress who smoked and drank and ate hard-boiled eggs to really give her voice this gritty, horrifying quality, which sounds so eerie coming out of a child. There are so many just practical elements of this, which you could absolutely recreate on no budget now. It's just inventive casting, inventive layering. It really doesn't take that much. It's surprising that they spent as much money on it as they did. You can certainly see it.
They spent, I think,
on the screen.
It's one of those things where I imagine the money spent was for the time it took.
Yeah,
in fact, took a long time.
Shoot.
I mean, they shot in northern Iraq.
The shoot was scheduled for 84 days, and I believe it ran to 200 plus.
Right.
So it was a troubled production. There's a lot of there have been a lot of sort of what would they be called? Horror stories, urban legends that fly around.
Fires, deaths.
Jack
the
McGowan,
post-production
one
was
of the
McGowan.
actors, died before the film was released.
Played the director. Yeah.
There were a few fires on set. There's been some stuff afterwards. It's one of those things. It's just such a creepy movie that people want to continue the legacy into the real world. I can't think of anyone I've ever met who has not seen this movie. That's how.
I've known a few that work here.
Wow.
It's since been changed. Everybody has been caught up. I don't even know where my Blu-ray copy of this is anymore.
Well,
it's somewhere in this office.
But
it's just an amazing picture. For me, one of the reasons I love it so much is that William Friedkin is talking about this to great length. To me, one-on-one name drop.
All right, please, in the comments, tally up the amount of name drops as well that Andrew will provide in the next 2 minutes.
Right. I met Eileen Dietz, who played Reagan's stunt double.
Word two.
All right, so, but he really believed that this was a movie dealing with the crisis of faith. That was his foremost. He didn't just want to make a horror movie. He wanted to deal with the mystery of faith. And honestly, as somebody who I consider myself a Christian, I think that actually really resonates in this picture.
And I would agree with you, but it's worth keeping in mind while watching it.
Yeah, you don't have to.
And being aware of what Friedkin said about the movie, that probably a lot of the money that Warner Brothers expended on this must have been cocaine expenditure. This was made in 1973. There were a lot of very famous rich people who degenerated further during the decade. There were clearly some really stoned people.
The friend of Father Karras in the movie, Father Dyer, was a real priest at the time.
Yes, and still is. He still teaches.
Yeah, in Georgetown, and he blessed the film. He said he wouldn't bless the film. He said
the film under duress, and I'm sure they bribed him with cocaine. Again, it was the 70s. Yeah. Anyone could do anything.
What I find particularly interesting, you had a really good point when we were talking about this in relationship to Rosemary's Baby, which is a film that shares a lot of thematic commonality, I think.
Yeah, it's they're both sort of slow burn religious horror films, a type you don't really see anymore.
Right.
I think it would take a huge social shakeup like the end of the 60s to, I don't know, make people re-examine what they believed and felt in the way that these movies, seem to. Mm-hmm. And I think the argument could be made, and we've had it before, in fact, as to whether or not there's any goodness in the narrative of the movie, not in the way it's made, but we see a lot of evil in it, and in my opinion, we never see anything other than belief which resembles good. We see a lot of evil, and then we see a lot of belief, but no real good.
Well, I think I think that there is actually more good in this movie than there is evil. I think the act, spoiler, you shouldn't be watching this if you haven't seen it, sorry. But this, screw you if you haven't seen this movie. The act of sacrifice that Karras has at the end, I think, is more a personification of goodness than anything in the movie was evil. And I really think that it is inherently a movie about sacrifice and a movie about love and faith, almost more than it is about a movie about possession or evil.
Well, if the movie's so good, why is Father Karras so dead by the end? Spoiler alert, don't have watched that if you haven't seen it already. Anyway, the point is, it really is an amazing film. There's a lot to talk about. I'm sure we'll get a lot of very well-reasoned comments below. But let us know what you think. What's your take on the movie? Do you think we've seen a religious horror flick that beats this in the years subsequent? I'd be interested in hearing.
Do you think it's too slow these days? Do you think it holds up at all? I know a lot of people who saw it later in life, who maybe saw a lot of things that were inspired by it, and in turn found this to be too slow burn. They found Lee J. Cobb's detective role to maybe be unnecessary.
Well,
I found it to be very fascinating. But then again, I saw this movie at a very young age, and it was really one of the first things that exposed me to horror in a serious way. So.
All right. Well, that's nice.
I think a lot of it has to do with where you were in life when you saw this film.
All right. Well, let us know below. Andrew, do you want to say the titles of any other movies? The 49 Steps.
Gravity comes out soon. Watch that.
Oh, you dinkus. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Join us again tomorrow when we'll be reviewing a different picture. I'm Sam.
I'm Andrew.
And thanks for watching.